Hello everybody! So today we're going to talk about the 10-point program. If you take a look at it on the brochure, it's on page 26 and 27, and you'll see that it's a list of 10 requests. But where does it come from? This document comes from the Black Panthers Party, and we're not talking about Wakanda followers here. The Black Panthers Party is an African-American revolutionary organization founded in Oakland, California in 1966. Its leaders were Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton. At the very beginning, this organization was created to protect black communities from police brutality. Clearly against white supremacy in the United States, Black Panthers fought to give power to seemingly powerless communities. Their goals and what they wanted to achieve was put in a list of 10 requests called the 10-point program. This program was released on May 15, 1967 in the second issue of the party's newspaper, The Black Panther. All succeeding 537 issues had the program in it. Each member of the party was supposed to apply this program in their everyday life. This program gives a very clear idea of the party's ideology. Written by Black Panthers member Huey P. Newton on October 15, 1966, this text remains a very strong symbol of the fight of the black communities to obtain equality. This document is usually divided in two parts. The first one, called What We Want Now, explains what the Black Panthers are expecting from the leaders of the American society, from the American government. The second part is called What We Believe, and it outlines the philosophical views of the party, insisting on the rights that African Americans should have. The structure of the document is similar to the United States Bill of Rights from the US Constitution, which is obviously not a coincidence, but a way to show that this document represents their own guideline, like the Bill of Rights is for the American citizens. So now we are going to take a closer look at the document. This text could be divided in three parts: the fight for equality, the request to get compensation for the past, and the expectations in the future. The fight for equality. First of all, one of the most recurrent themes in this text is the fight for equality, legally and socially. This text was written 55 years ago. Slavery had been officially abolished in 1865 with the 13th Amendment, followed by the 14th Amendment in 1868, giving citizenship to everyone born or naturalized in the United States. But 1 century after that, there is still a big inequality between black and white people in the United States. As they say in the first article of the program, they want freedom and the power to choose their own destiny. Even if the government says that they are free, it will not be true as long as racism and violence continues towards black communities and as long as the institutions are fully controlled by this kind of people. The Article 5 also asks for equality in a way. Article 5 says, "We want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present-day society." In school, history had always been taught from a white point of view, always picturing the black people as less important than white in the American history. How can a young black man start his life without even knowing his own history? This is what the Black Panthers Party is asking for in this article: the possibility for new black generations to learn true and fair history, to not step foot in life already a step behind. Another demand enlightening their need for equality is Article 9, which says, "We want all black people, when brought to trial, to be tried in court by a jury of their peer group or people from their black communities, as defined by the Constitution of the United States." As they mention it, this demand echoes with the 14th Amendment of the American Constitution, which says that every man living in the United States has the right to be judged by his peers, people living in the same environment with a similar way of life. Black people should be judged in court by other black people, coming from the same communities, not by white people who have no idea what it's like to be an African American in America. Black people being judged by white people when white people are always judged by white people is a clear injustice and proves a strong inequality. Getting compensation for the past. In this document, Black Panthers are also asking for compensation for the past. In Article 3, they say, "We want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our black and oppressed communities." Even if in the past years the law seems to have evolved in favor of the black communities, they are still used by capitalists, powerful rich people using them to make more money, but this money doesn't go back to the black people who helped creating it. Still in this article, they ask to be paid in currency the value of 40 acres and 2 mules. This precise demand doesn't come from nowhere. This is what was promised to the black people 100 years ago after the American Civil War, as a compensation for slave labor and mass murder of the community. They never got this compensation promised to them, so they are asking for it now. Then, they emphasize on how this request is ridiculous compared to the wrongs they've been facing, comparing their situation to the Jews massacre during World War II. Knowing that the Germans have killed over 6 million of Jews, and they are now helping them to rebuild their community in Israel, asking for 40 acres and 2 mules doesn't seem that big of a compensation, knowing that American racists have slaughtered over 50 million black people.
Wrongs from the past must also be corrected on a legal level. In the United States, when you go on trial, a jury of people chosen randomly will decide if you are guilty or innocent of the charges you're accused of. The problem here is that generally African Americans are judged by white people who do not know what it is like to live in the United States as a black person. The 8th point states, "We want freedom for all black men held in federal, state, county, and city prisons and jails." So they considered every trial involving a black person not fair because they were judged by white people. So they demanded freedom and retrial with a black jury from the accused neighborhood. A lot of cases in the United States were wrongly closed because of an unfair trial or an unfair police treatment. Overall, in those articles, they want justice for the past in order to have a better future. Finally, we will see the purpose of all the 10 points, which is providing a better future for the next generation. In the second point, Huey Newton wrote, "We want full employment for our people." Indeed, at the time black people had difficulties to get a job because companies were mostly run by powerful white men that didn't want any changes in society because it favored them well. They will find excuses not to employ African American, like their lack of diploma or work experience, but how can they obtain those two things when they are always refused a job and can't access good education? Therefore, since they can't get employed by white people, they should be able to access the means of production without going through white business owners so that the black community can work and develop on itself. This brings us back to the 4th point, where they demand decent housing to their government, or at least the chance to build them themselves. In this document, they point out that white landlords refuse to lend them a house because of their skin tone, and this is something that needs to change. So they want to be given back the lands and the housing. Then, the 6th point called for an exemption from military service for black people because they don't want to fight and risk even more their lives for a country that doesn't protect them. They don't want to fight against other black people who are also controlled by a white racist government as it is written in the text. The next point mentions that police brutality is one of the biggest problems for African Americans. The police can break the law without consequences. They kill and they don't get charged for it. That is why the Black Panthers Party demands the right to create a black defense group in their neighborhood. They will be able to wear guns based on their right to keep and bear arms thanks to the Second Amendment in order to protect themselves from police brutality. Finally, the last point resumes all the things they demand. We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace, as well as underline that they just want what is in the Constitution to be applied for them as well, which is also why it is structured similarly to the United States Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution. This part of the text refers to it as it says that they only want their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to be respected as American citizens. This is their way to fight the system that let them down. They consider that it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new gods for their future security, as it is written in the very last paragraph of the 10-point program. In conclusion, the Black Panthers Party created a 10-point program that they followed in their everyday life, where they demand equal rights for their community, and expresses how frightening it is to live in the United States as a black person. This document did not have the result expected and was not well welcomed in American society. Today, this fight is still going, even if it's not under the same party. The next generation has continued to fight for their lives under the Black Lives Matter movement because the situation has not really evolved in the last 60 years. Police brutality is still going on, as well as discrimination, racism in the United States, but the fight continues. Thank you for listening, and here is our meme.